This video is going to be on calculating percentages without a calculator. In order to do this for any percentage, we first need to learn how to calculate 4 basic percentages that can be done in your head. To find 10% of an amount, you need to take the amount and divide it by 10. To find 1%, you divide the amount by 100. To find 50% of an amount, you halve the amount. If you need practice dividing by 10, 100 or halving, then hopefully there's a link that has just appeared that will take you to a video to help you to do this. 5% is slightly harder to calculate, but there's a trick to do this. Whatever value you have for 50%, you divide that by 10, and that will give you 5%. So now we're going to practice finding these 4 different percentages of these different numbers here. Now I have color-coded the numbers to show you which ones are harder than the others, green being the easiest, blue being the next, and red being the hardest. If you want to have a go at all 6 questions before I go through them, that's fine. Or you can wait for me to have a go at the very first one and then pause the video afterwards and you can have a go at the one underneath. So let's start with 800. To find 10% of 800, I divide it by 10, which is 80. To find 1% of 800, I divide it by 100, which is 8. To find 50%, I half it, which is 400. To find 5%, I'm going to divide 400 by 10, which is 40. Pause the video now and have a go at 200 underneath. Right, hopefully you've had a go at that now. I'm just going to quickly run through the answers for 200. 10% dividing it by 10 is 20. 1% divided by 100 is 2. 50% you halve the number, which is 100. And 5% you divide that 100 by 10. $80 is slightly harder to do, but we can still do it in our heads. Dividing 80 by 10 will give you 8. Dividing it by 100, because we have no more zeros to take off, we'll end up ending with a decimal answer, which is 0.8. Halving 80 for 50% will give you 40, and then dividing that 40 by 10 will end up with 4. Pause the video and have a go at 50 underneath. Right, hopefully you've had a go at that one. So let's run through the answers for that. Dividing it by 10 for 10%, we get 5. Dividing by 100, just like the example above, we end up with 0.5. Dividing 50 by 2, or halving, we end up with 25. Dividing this 25 by 10, we'll end up with 2.5, just like when we did 1%, getting a decimal answer. Now the red number is slightly harder again because we have no zeros to begin with. So we're going to end up with most of our answers being decimals. To divide this number by 10, we're going to end up with 1 decimal number coming in, so we'll end up with 12.4. To divide it by 100 for 1%, we're going to have 2 decimal numbers, which will be 1.24. Halving the number, if we take it 1 bit at a time, 12 halved is 6, 4 halved is 2, so 124 halved is 62. Now dividing 62 by 10, again, will give us a decimal answer, and that is 6.2. Have a go at 226 yourself. Right, hopefully you've had a go at that now, and I'll just run through the answers for this one. Dividing it by 10, you get 22.6. Dividing it by 100, you get 2.26. Halving the number gives you 113. Dividing this 113 by 10 will give us 11.3. Right, now that we've practiced these four basic percentages, we're now going to have a little look at finding any percentage we want using these four percentages. If you struggled with that last exercise, may I suggest that you go back to the beginning and try it one more time. Otherwise, let's try doing any percentages. Right, so the first example, I want to try and find 23% of 500. Now I'm going to start by finding the four percentages that we did before. So 10% of 500 will be 50. 1% of 500 is 5. 50% is 250. And 5% is 25. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these percentages to try and build up to 23%. So to get 23%, I need to use 2 10% and 3 1%. If I add those up, I end up with 23%. In order to find the amount that 23% represents, I'm going to do this with the amounts. So I have 50, 50, 5, 5, and another 5, which all adds up to 15. 5 and 5 and 1 is 11. So it all adds up to 115. So 23% of 500 is 115. To find 55% of 40, again, I'm going to start exactly the same way I have done before, finding 10%, which is 4, 1%, 0.4, 50% will be 20, and 5% will be 2. Now to find 55%, I could use 5 10% and 5 1%. But I can be quicker if I use 1 50% and 1 5%. To do that with the amounts, I have 20 and 2, which gives me an answer of 22. So 55% of 40 is 22. To find 66% of 1,200, again, I'm going to start exactly the same way I've done before. 10% is 120. 1% is 12. 50% is 600. And 5% is 60. To find 66%, again, I could use 6 10% and 6 1%, but in fact, the quickest way will be to use 1 50%, 1 10%, 1 5%, and 1 1%. To do this with the values now, that means I need to add up a 600, 120, a 60, and a 12. Adding this up, I get 2, 9, 7. So my amount for 66% of 1,200 will be 792. Right, what I'd like you to have a go at now is have a go at the questions that I'm just revealing down the bottom here. So pause the video, have a little go, and then I'll go through the answers in a moment. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at these now, and I'm going to run through the answers. 10% is 70, 1% is 7, 50% is 350, and 5% is 35. The quickest way to find 11% is to have 1 10%, 1 1%, and adding those numbers up, I end up with 70 and a 7, which gives me 77 as my answer of 11% of 700. To find 36% of 90, firstly 10% is 9, 1% is 0.9, 50% is 45, and 5% is 4.5. So to do this, I need to use 3 10%, And the quickest way would be to use 1 5% and 1 1%. So to do this with the numbers, that is 3 nines, 1 lot of 4.5, and 1 lot of 0.9. Now when adding decimals, I would always recommend that you put in the extra missing decimal points and line up the decimal points in your answer box as well. So 5 and 9 is 14, carry the 1. 9 and 9 and 9 is 27, I apologize. Add the 4 is 31, add another 1 is 32. So 36% of 90 is 32.4. To find 65% of 1,500, 10% is 150, 1% is 15, halving 1,500 is 750, and dividing that by 10, I get 75. So to find 65%, I'm going to use 150%, 110%, 15%. Doing this with the numbers, I get 750, 150, and 75. Adding those up, get 5, 17, and 9. So my answer is 975. Okay, if there was any part of that that you did not understand, I suggest that you go back through the video and try it again. Otherwise, I'll see you in class to continue this. Bye-bye.